My dad can beat up your dad was a badge of honor. Man, I miss that conversation. Feel like we really need that in society today. If you ever had a truly awesome dad, you know the vibe that I'm talking about. It's really a whole aura. It's really just this whole vibe. It's hard to put into words, but I'm gonna try my best. Now, let me be realistic. Of course, we weren't out here as 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids booking championship fights between each other's dad. Obviously that was just unrealistic. And, I can't even remember a single instance where two dads actually did fight, but it's just the talk about it. It was just the whole vibe. It was just the whole aura. And if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. There was this time where dad was viewed as a superhero like Thor or Superman or Spider-Man, Wolverine, something like that. There was really a whole vibe where your dad was a superhero. Your dad was tough. He could fix anything, take down anyone, and even if he couldn't fix it, you still had this feeling that everything was going to be all right. What I'm trying to get at as dad was a protector. And it leads me to this question that I have today of where have all the dads gone? Because yes, you can be a dad biologically. You can be, well, technicalities, you can be a sperm donor. And yeah, you can be a biological father, but that's not what I'm talking about. We need dads. And a lot of men have stopped doing that. They've either run away from the responsibility like cowards, or they're physically present, but they might as well not even be there. I think today's standard has really changed. Hopefully, we get back to that. I got a few ideas and I've got a theory, but the standard has changed so much. I don't even know what the standard is today, but it's certainly not a vibe of my dad can beat up your dad. The vibe nowadays is more, I guess, since we got so many single parents, single mothers out here, I guess my mom can beat up your mom would be the similar vibe. Or I guess even worse, my dad or my mom can beat up your dad. Or, there's less of a masculine toughness to it. You know, my dad can out gentle parent your dad. You know, you know, like, or my dad is more inclusive than your dad. Some of these kids don't even call their dad or pops or father. They call him by the first name. Yeah, Todd, he's a good provider. Stuff like that. I've got a whole video on that I'm going to do eventually. If your kids are out here calling you by your first name as if you're an equal or you're their BFF, then something's wrong. Probably the worst standard is there's no comparison of mom or dad or anything. The worst standard is when you get this question: who? In other words, dad's not even in the picture, which is just equal parts laughable and a tragedy at the same time. Here's my theory. A lot of today, there's this divisive, really fear-based culture where fear and drama makes money. I mean, there's been fear and drama all throughout the history, but doesn't it seem like it's really exponentially increased in the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years in the internet era, the social media era? My theory is that a lot of that is based on a lack of perceived protections. The importance of that strong dad means that you are less likely to do or say things that would embarrass the family because you would get that look, or wait till your dad gets home. There was that kind of vibe too. Yeah, a lot of that's gone because a lot of dads aren't present, unfortunately. Or again, like I said earlier, if they are physically present, they're not emotionally or socially present. In other words, they might as well not even be there. And what that's really done is a lot of people, groups, activists, whatever you want to call them, that once upon a time would have been considered weak or effeminate or really wouldn't move the needle. Well, now they have more power because there's less of a fatherly presence to provide someone with some common sense and to hold people accountable. So you got the Wild West out here, especially when it comes to the internet and social media, where it literally is, the closest thing to the Wild West. And these people that don't have the monitoring, the structure, that fatherly figure to kind of keep them in check. And then they go in this place where there it's really no holds bar. You can say whatever, act like whatever, represent whoever, claim whatever identity, and nobody just comes up to you and says, well, that's stupid, or get a hold of yourself. And when you do hear something like that, well, then you go on some virtue signaling rant and you start crying because somebody was unfair to you. And it doesn't resonate the same way because, for example, I'm talking to you in this video, and if I don't know you personally, and obviously I'm not your father or a father figure, and if I tell you you need to change this or do that, it might make a difference, but you don't care about disappointing me because you don't know me personally, more than likely. And if you don't know me personally, if it doesn't resonate deep down, like you're hurting the lineage, then you're less likely to change or do something about it. That's what we're missing. That's why we need dads. We need tough, strong dads that have the potential to beat up your dad. I, I'm t- if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sure somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. Like if you didn't have that in your life, let me pull back a little bit. Let me be a little bit more on the sympathetic side because I know some people out there didn't have a dad, meaning that the dad provided the seed and brought you into this world, but wasn't present in your life. Maybe abandoned your family. You didn't really have that innate role model that a father provides, or on top of that, you never had a father figure that you really saw or emulate that you could take seriously. Maybe you saw it once in a while and it seemed weird and foreign to you because a lot of the friends and a lot of people that you were around in your neighborhood that was just unusual. You didn't see that from them. And maybe you're a dad yourself. Maybe you have kids and you just haven't taken that opportunity to step up and be that strong protector. Maybe you're still dealing with not dealing with, but maybe you're still living in the past of what your dad did to you or wasn't there for you for, and you're still holding on to that and you haven't worked out in those situations. In any of those cases, I truly, truly sympathize with you because you're missing out or you have missed out. My heart goes out to you because a good dad like that is awesome. Whether you're the dad or whether you've had that dad in your life, there's no other way I can explain it. Now, with that being said, especially I'm talking to men out here, whether you're a father or whether you have the potential to be a father figure or mentor, you do have the opportunity to be that dad. And that would be awesome. We need more of that in the world. You can be that dad to your kids. Again, if you already have kids in your life, biological kids, step kids, or whatever, you can set that template. And you can do that by doing some things I mentioned before, being strong, being in good shape, being active with your kids, holding them accountable, being interested in their lives and not just a bystander. You can be a mentor or a father figure for a kid that doesn't have a dad or doesn't have their dad around. There's big brother, big sister programs, and there's always young people that are hungry for a mentor. They might act tougher and holier than thou that they don't need it, but trust me, there is a position for you if you're willing to step up. You can even be that father figure to your peers. If you're around a bunch of clowns and a bunch of goofballs, you can be a leader. You can set the template for not being immoral, not getting caught up in drugs and alcohol and fornication and all the typical pitfalls that overly emotional and effeminate men get caught up with. You can set that template. Yeah, you'll get your fair share of resistance, especially if you've been going a different path this whole time, but it'll sink in over time. So you can be a sort of father figure, meaning that you can be the most mature of your peers or your friend groups. It's never too late. You want to relish that opportunity to be a superhero. You want to relish the opportunity to be a legit super dad. Because, and speaking, when I use the terms like Superman's just a comic book. He's a fictional figure. He's just drawings on a page. You can be the real dad, which by default makes you stronger than Superman. Let that sink in. It's a cartoon character with drawn with pencil, color pencils, whatever. And you're a real man that has the opportunity to do something about this. Yeah, let me be clear here. I'm talking to the fathers here. Um, the women, mothers that might be watching, listening to this, tell this to the men in your life. Encourage them. Support them. Tell them that they can be that man instead of bashing them and saying that all men are terrible. Don't be on some kind of modern feminist vibe where men, patriarchy, it's the worst thing in the world. Don't be that person. Okay, we need more superheroes. We need more Superman and Spider-Man and Wolverine, but the real version that doesn't have fake cartoony stuff going on. Above all, if you don't know where to start, the template for being a good dad, I've given you a few tips here, but overall, the best template to follow is from the ultimate dad, our Heavenly Father, our Lord. God set the template. He brought dads into the fold. He passed that lineage down to the dads. The dad is, in biblical terms, and even to this day, is responsible for the course of the marriage and for the course of the family. So there's your template right there. If you follow his lead, you're already greater than a superhero by default. How much greater do you think God is in terms of laying that template? Greater than any superhero that you can imagine. We really have the potential to do it. I hope this encourages you to go out there and be the best dad you can be to somebody, because we need more of you. We need more men. We need more dads that aren't going to let all these other non-masculine father hating entities raise their kids. Like, we're not going to sit here and let YouTube raise our kids and let Instagram raise our kids and let grants and funding and subsidy try to replace our kids. We're not, or replace our dads, I should say. But we're not going to sit here and let subsidies and initiatives and grants, which they all have their place within moderation, but they're not a replacement for a good dad. They're just not. And we know this. How long have we been throwing money and scholarships and funds at kids, thinking that it's going to knock some sense into them and cut down on this crime and these shootings and men acting like little boys or men acting effeminate? We think we just keep pumping money into these programs and there's no substance behind it. There's no stern father figure behind it. We think it's just going to erase all these societal problems, and that's not going to happen. So I guess my call here is we need to get back to that point where dad was the protector and a strong figure in the household. And again, my dad can beat up your dad. We know that there's not actually brawls and fights going on out there with dads. Again, it's just about the vibe, the templates, the aura that was brought. That's what we need to get back to. So hopefully you got a few tips from this. Hopefully it inspires you a little bit. I'm going to do the best I can with my kids. You know, I got my two young kids, and I'm going to be the best dad that I can be for them. And I relish the opportunities that my kids, either that they say it out loud or they think it, that their dad can beat up anyone else's dad. And I'm going to be in the gym here soon to make sure that that continues. Hope you got something from this. Peace and God bless.